Hi guys, hope you're all doing well. This is the first kettlebell workout video that I'm going to do. I'm going to try and tailor it to various different weights, so hopefully you'll still get something out of it. Let's get ready with the warm-up. So the first part of the warm-up is to run a timer for 2 minutes, and in that 2 minutes you keep doing 5 star jumps, 5 squats, and 5 Y to W's. Now that is probably the one that you haven't seen before, so once these squats are done I'll talk to you about those. So if you've done a lot of my other classes, you might have done something like this with me before. Basically you lay face down on the floor with your nose just off the floor. You reach your arms up into a Y shape and then pull your elbows down into a W shape. And I want you to really focus on the squeezing of the shoulder blades. So you reach high and then you squeeze back and down. You're going to have plenty of time to practice that now while we're warming up. So just keep going through these exercises as quickly as you can. Keep this a small movement, don't raise yourself off the floor too high, and really try to feel that squeeze in between the shoulder blades. That's part 1 of the warm-up done, so moving on to part 2, we're going to do 2 each side, starting with our side plank twists. So you stay on one elbow and you reach under your armpit and then up to the ceiling, and then you change side for 2 each side. Then once you're up, we're going to go on to our lunge with twist. If I step forward with my left leg, I'm going to twist over my left leg, and likewise with my right. So you twist towards the leg you're stepping forwards with. 2 of those each side as well. And lastly, our single leg deadlifts, focusing on keeping the back neutral and keeping minimal bend in the knee. So these are like your stiff legged deadlifts, 2 each side and then swap. This one is extra important because it's going to help us warm the hamstrings and the back, which is crucial for our kettlebell work. So you've got some more time now just to keep working through these. Make sure you get as much done in your 2 minutes as possible, and then we'll start the workout. Okay, so we're about to start. We've got about 10 seconds and then we're starting with some kettlebell swings. So you're going to fold over at the hips, stand up as aggressively as you can and fire that weight up. keeping the arms relaxed. This momentum comes from the hips, not the arms. Let's go. Notice I'm not arching back at the top, I'm just coming up to standing. Moving on to our bent over row, you can either go two-handed or single-handed depending on what weight you have. Again, I'm tipped over at the waist and I'm pulling my shoulder back and pulling the weight back. Now we've got our squat to press. Once again, you've got two-handed and one-handed variations. If it's one-handed, I would swap every 3 or 4 reps or so. Just keep as much movement as possible and squat nice and low. Let's go. Alright guys, you've got 30 seconds rest and then we're going to start practicing the clean. The clean is the act of pulling the weight up to your shoulder into what we call a rack position, and from there we can do a bunch of other exercises. Again, it's about bringing the momentum from the hips and not lifting the weight with your arm. And I'm going to go through how to do that in a moment. We're going to have 2 minutes of practicing that. If your weight is too heavy for you to practice cleans or you just don't feel comfortable with that, then you can practice deadlifts instead. So starting off, we'll look at that rack position. That's what we're aiming to get to. In this position, your elbow is flared out past the kettlebell, so the kettlebell sits on top. Your wrist is straight, so it's not bent back, and the weight is in line with the body. As the weight gets heavier, you might want to bring it more into the center of the body. Now we're going to pull the weight to this position using the hips and the power in the legs, so that it should feel fairly weightless in the arm. And then the arm is just going to guide it up. Now I'm starting with this high row, high elbow position, just to stop you from bicep curling the weight up. Eventually over time, as you get more confident and stronger, you're not going to want to row the kettlebell quite as high because it will make it bounce on your arm. But for starters, pulling the elbow high just stops you from bicep curling that weight up. So our 2 minutes is ticking down. Just get as many cleans as you can if you're already good at the exercise, or as many deadlifts if you're doing that instead, or you can just use this time to practice this drill that I'm doing here, your high rows and then your cleans, just so you can start to get the line of the kettlebell right, coming up the body, landing on the forearm with the elbow sticking out slightly. And just a side on demonstration now, just so you can see it doesn't swing out too far in front. I'm not bicep curling it up, and I'm still getting that bend in the hips and firing the weight up from there. Okay, good job guys. Now we're going on to our next round of circuits. This time we're starting with the squat. You can see I'm holding my kettlebell upside down. That's so it doesn't become focused on my biceps the way that I'm holding it. I can just sit it in the crook of my palms and it's stable. If your weight is too light, you can add a pause at the bottom of each squat like I am, or you could even do split squats instead if you feel like it. Get ready guys, and off we go. And this is while we were practicing those cleans, we're now going to go into a clean and squat. You're going to clean the weight up and then squat down just like you just did, and then change arm. I've also shown you a 2-arm variation here as well. Let's go. Next, we've got our boat press, which is going to be our core exercise for today. Again, you can do it 1 arm and swap every 3 reps, or you can do it 2 arms, but you're just holding this sit-up position and pressing up. And practicing that clean again. This time we're doing our clean and press. Again, I've shown you a 1-arm variation and a 2-arm variation. If you're doing 1 arm, do 1 rep and swap over as quick as you can. Let's go. And last exercise in this circuit is our deadlifts, keeping the back flat, keeping a minimal knee bend, just enough to get to the floor, and standing up nice and straight. Let's go for our deadlifts. This is one of our strongest movements, so we should be able to get plenty of reps on this one. Just make sure you keep paying attention to your form. Okay guys, good work so far. Now we're going to have a rest and then start that circuit again, starting with our kettlebell swings. Remember, you're trying to keep the arms relaxed, stand up as powerfully as possible, driving with the hips and not leaning back at the top. And now those bent over rows, pulling with either 1 arm or 2 arms depending on your weight. Really go for those shoulder blades squeezing back. And squat to press now, last one before we start practicing our cleans, so really get as much done as you can. Okay, 30 seconds rest, and then we're going back to our cleans. Make sure you get as many reps done as you can in 2 minutes if you're already comfortable with the technique. If you're still learning it, then just take your time, focus on pulling the kettlebell up your body and then dropping your elbow underneath to catch it. And again, if your weight is super heavy or you're just not comfortable with the technique, practice your deadlifts instead. Okay guys, our 2 minutes starts now. I'll put these reminders up again, but you can just go straight into practicing your cleans if you're comfortable. We're going to pull that weight up, have the hand in the middle of the body, elbow sticking out so the kettlebell's got a shelf to lean on, and the wrist is neutral so you're not bending your wrist back. You can start with these high rows, pulling the elbow up, and once you've got that kettlebell nice and high, you just drop your elbow under and catch. Make sure you're powering the weight up through the hips. It's weightless through the arms, so your arms aren't working too hard. It's all about that leg power and that hip power. Keep going guys, go for as many reps as possible, really try and perfect that technique. Okay guys, good stuff. We're going to move on to our last 4 exercises of the circuit now, starting with our squats. Make sure you squat nice and low and add that pause if you need to. And now moving on to our clean to squat again. Pull that weight high and then squat down nice and low. And time for the boat press, working that core again. One arm or two arm, just make sure you get as many reps as you can in the time you've got. And now moving on to our clean and press, push the cardio and the upper body as hard as you can. Get those reps. And our last exercise is our deadlifts. Keep your back straight, go for as many reps as possible. Well done guys, the workout is done for today. I'm going to use some of my old cool down footage just because the weather has changed and I can't really film some stretches in the mud in the garden. So you may have seen these stretches before, but just move through them and bring your heart rate down, bring yourself down to a nice relaxed state. We're going to start with our overhead tricep stretch, seeing as we've done a lot of pressing today. So reach the arm over the head, bend the elbow, and then pull it across with the other arm, stretching the tricep. And change side, go for stretching the other tricep. And we're going to move into our pigeon stretch now. In your press up position, bring one leg across and then drop your hips down to the floor. It should feel that stretch in your glutes. And change side. Now bringing yourself up into a kneeling position, stretching the hip flexors and pulling the leg behind to stretch the quads as well. If you find this difficult to balance, you can always hold on to something, or you can just leave the foot on the floor and you'll still get a good stretch in the hips. And change over to the other side. Well done guys, that's us done for today. Enjoy the rest of your day and I'll see you for circuits tomorrow.